pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we circulated the minutes as we said the last time, so they should be good to go. And then we posted them. Hopefully everybody was able to find.
She said they were on, so
Find them on the town website. So, what we said we would do tonight is look at the economic factors that we had come up with and identify whether those factors were a positive influence, a negative influence, or neutral, and then who the beneficiaries were, who would incur the risk, and where we came up with this finding from, if in fact there was a study or a source. And then the second task was to identify all the municipal issues that we thought needed to be addressed. So, who wants to start?
I'm just going to mention that I'm putting a sign in here.
Well, I don't have a copy of them, so.
Okay.
Okay. You know what? I have an extra copy right here. Okay. Can I clarify what is B2B retail?
Basically, businesses buying from other businesses.
Okay.
Business to business retail, as opposed to the workers coming in and buying. So we separated that out. We can recategorize things, in whatever way. I don't know. Maybe that's a good place to start. Did you identify any things that we should either recategorize or shuffle around?
Well, and number 9, the employment property income, it was so much jumbled into that
Right.
I wasn't clear on new taxes, what that meant exactly.
It means what we don't know.
Okay.
Potential areas for new taxes that we aren't aware of at the moment.
Okay.
Maybe that should say new taxes or fees.
Yeah, fees is probably okay.
So we'll add that, new taxes or fees. And then I reviewed Tom's study quite a bit, and I don't know that deserves a separate category. It's really a discussion about everything that we're talking about. So I don't know if you guys think we should have that as a separate category. We listed it as a separate category because not everybody had reviewed it in enough detail yet.
Okay.
So, what do you think?
What Tom had, I read several times. There was a lot of pluses in there as far as the retail end of it and the boom end of it. I mean, there was. It also went on in depth at the end of it not being equal to the bust is as bad as the boom.
Right.
So in 20 years it equals out. Well, 20 years sitting here doing nothing, you got nothing. So which is it you want to do?
Yeah. So do you think that should be a separate category, or just really a discussion across everything?
Well, it is a separate finding of, what is it, the Cornell group? No, it wasn't the Cornell group. It was,
I was going to ask.
They were Otsego County ones, or what the heck was it from?
No, actually, I was going to research where it came from, and I forgot to do that. It's this one. It came from a private, I presume, consulting firm, J.M. Barth and Associates.
So we don't know.
But I don't know who commissioned it or if it was paid for. So, and I didn't get a chance to do that research. I meant to do that. So I guess try to do that quick, but why don't you guys talk through the first couple and I'll see if I can get an answer on that real quick.
Okay, so B2B retail, I really can't address because I wasn't sure what it meant. We're looking at the indirect.
Yes, just
Okay.
indirect. Well, we could, I mean, now that it's clarified that it's business to business, maybe.
The two studies I read, the business to business retail, short term, it's a pro. I would like to see more about the long term though. I mean, everything I read, short term was a pro, but it's the long term that I think also has to be looked at in comparison
Right.
to the short term. I couldn't find many disadvantages out there,
Right.
so.
And what was your feeling on the B2B, Earl?
Well, it's definitely gonna be a boom for a while, that's for certain, there's no question about it. Just having that many more people in the area, that many more jobs, that much more going on, there's gonna be fuel, there's gonna be motel rooms, there's gonna be, so many more other businesses that are gonna make money other than, you know, just a gas business.
Right.
And, your stores, your smaller stores, even though some of these guys are imports, you know, they have to eat, they have to live, and it's gonna be, as far as I'm concerned, it'll be a big place. But for how long? I don't know. Are we gonna be able to do it with the amount of people that, or amount of business, hello Craig, amount of businesses and people that we have right now, depending on how fast we allow it to happen?
Right.
You know, if they regulate it so that it doesn't, they don't all come through here in 2 years and they're gone, well, then it'll last for 6, 8, 10 years, you know, depending on how many wellheads they put in.
It can last 30 to 50.
Huh?
30 to 50 years it could last, depending how much.
30 to 60 years.
30 to 50, yes, that's what one of the
Right.
reports
Or
said.
2.
Or two. Well, there you go. Right.
It really depends on the,
Yeah, there's a lot
you know,
of
what did they
factors, yeah.
call it in the scale and, you know, the size of the wells and the number of wells deployed
Right.
within a given region.
Yeah.
They have a term for that, the scale and something else.
I think you have to distinguish between the initial actual drilling period
Right.
and so, I mean, the drilling period itself is 2 to 3 years. Of course, there could
Right.
be wells over time, but once that's established, the bulk of the workforce is
That's
gone.
correct.
Right.
The drilling process is the big workforce.
So Craig, where we were was talking about the first category, B2B
B2B.
retail, and whether we thought it was a pro, a con, or neutral. And so far, and I agree that it's a pro. The only question is there a negative after effect? And so far, I haven't really found one.
Well, one of the negative effects of the actual drilling the wells and stuff like that is their biggest concern, the highway system. You know, what's the roads gonna be like when they're done? There again, if that's restricted and they have to refix everything that's tore up. And they're working on analyzing the roads right now, or before this starts, so that this, you know, this road is 80% of a good road, or 70% of a good road. When you're done, it has to come back up to that or be better.
Well, we're dealing with economy right now.
Right.
Isn't that more municipal?
Probably.
Yeah, I would say so.
I suppose you could say there's an element of quality of life too, but yeah, so let's stick to the economic factors. So for B2B, are we identifying any cons?
Not for the short term.
Okay.
Well, just there'd be so much more demand. Think, for example, Calhoun Supply and having everything bought out, you know, in one day or something, and that could be considered a negative because other businesses that are here for life would have, you know, more demand on things. Prices could go up spitballing here.
I know, that's the kind of stuff I was hoping to see a little bit in the data, but I didn't. I mean, I was even Googling, like, trying to get, like, another small town that was very similar to our makeup, and I just wasn't finding that. So just going on the data, I didn't see that, you know, but that certainly could be a outcome.
I would agree, but I didn't find it either. So, okay. What about employment? I think this depends dramatically on the length of that cycle, because again, if you read the Penn State, the economic impacts of the Marcellus Shale, they're going to say it's all pro, but if you read any of the Cornell studies, they're going to say that it's probably fairly small, because most of the workforce comes from out of town, and they're transient and they move on. If you want to,
you're talking about the actual pipe layers and some of the welders.
Even
that end, and I understand that. I watched them work and was right there with them. Your truck drivers and your stuff like laborers, they'll hire them as local as they possibly can. I mean,
And again, they train them as well. They
and
train
train them also. Is right there.
The Penn State study focused on the trucking companies, which you're talking about,
right.
and
What's the name
engineering services.
done well on this, on the water end of it.
I would say the negative side would be it affects, we have second home economy, we have tourism here.
but that's a separate category.
Well, yes, but that's just talking about the economy. It has a downside to the economy.
Right, we're
But
just
we're
trying to
talking about
take each one
employment.
step at a time, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're just trying to go down the list one at a time. So what are the negative effects of the employment as a factor within the economy?
I think a negative effect, and I think if you look at Sullivan County's stats as far as their workforce, I don't think we have a lot of people here that could fill some of those spots.
Well, and if you look at the numbers from, I don't know if I can find, I tried to keep a bunch of things open, but I probably didn't keep enough of them open quickly. If you look at the statistics from the Cornell study, they're
I'm looking at it.
really small numbers,
I'm
tiny
looking at
numbers.
it now. The key points in the job creation is primarily dependent on the pace and the scale of drilling, which is very difficult to predict. You know, we don't know that. We don't know how fast it would go, or.
Do you have the Cornell study up right there?
Yes, I do. I have the workforce development challenges in the natural gas industry.
The one I looked at was the economic,
The majority, can I just finish this
Mhm.
thing? The majority of jobs do not require advanced skills and training, but they do require basic orientation to the industry and its technologies, of course. The industry is largely comprised of an array of independent contractors and subcontractors and lacks a standardized training curriculum. That's
well, and most of what
Can you say
I
that again so I
read
can
said the jobs that required training are jobs that would take the laborers away from here.
Well, in
So,
the small business, how is it going to affect our small
You know, I think it's
business?
like any contracting business. If you need the manpower, you're going to find it. If they don't have it here, you're going to go out and look for it. I mean, that's what it really amounts to. If they don't have the personnel, they'll probably look here first because it's in their best interest. And if they can't, they'll go out, find it, bring them in from wherever.
so are we summarizing it to say that we consider it a pro, but we really don't have a sense of how significant that plus is?
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
Is that,
I would say it's going to be a plus, but it also states here in the same report that complex workforce can be trained also. And there's training courses out there right now available. But if it was going to take place, You know, I can't imagine us not having manpower enough when unemployment's at 9%. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
think there's
right.
something wrong with this
And
picture.
you know what else is gonna happen too, is this, if it does happen, what they'll do is they'll go to the colleges and start a welding school. You know what I mean? That's what they'll do, because they're gonna need a lot of welders, you know, and they'll find, it's, you know, it's fairly, some of the stuff is fairly complex. I mean, welding isn't something you learn overnight, that you're good at, you know, they're good enough for this. So, you know, they're gonna go out and look for these guys, and the colleges will, like I say, will also get involved, so there's another plus side to it. You know, you have that.
I know they're doing that in Pennsylvania and some of the,
They're doing it out there, I think,
yeah,
that's right.
in the
How
community
many more
colleges.
people it would take to teach, you know, courses like that?
Yeah, you know, you have, that's right, you know, bring people in for that. The colleges will.
I wanted to find something else that talked about the change in the unemployment rate in Pennsylvania during the, and it was also New York figures too, but again, it's so hard to find exactly the study that I want when I need it. But there is one, and it quotes the unemployment rates in Pennsylvania and unemployment rates in New York, both during the drilling and post, and then it looks at adjacent counties to compare what their unemployment rates are, and the numbers are just about what you just quoted, and there's no difference. So
You
that,
don't know the name of that.
I'll find it.
Okay, and I can add it into
They
that.
actually shut down here. I mean, they're not drilling over here now.
No, this was done during the,
While they were putting the pipeline in.
during the drilling period,
Pipeline is a
both
whole
during and
that's a
after.
whole different operation altogether. That was a pipeline contracted to go through the pipeline company.
Right.
You know, that's not the drilling companies wanting, Chesapeake wanting to come in here. That was the pipeline
No,
itself.
this was for actual drilling operations both in Pennsylvania and in the upstate New York counties.
Okay.
So, but I'll find it.
Mhm.
But I was surprised that the numbers were not dramatically different in terms of number of people employed nor the unemployment rate. They were the same, or very close. There was no
You know,
sizable
I
difference.
don't get that.
Well,
Somehow I just don't.
It's not logical.
Yeah.
well,
But
listen,
part of
that
it
was the
speaks
beginning
to
of-
them-
That was the beginning of the recession that we just had also.
Well,
You know, thank God it did come through here. Or we'd have been hurting worse than we were.
the only way there's any logic to it if it's that much of the workforce is transient.
That's what I was,
And you know
yeah.
what, that's a very good chance of that.
It's not
You know,
affecting
they're gonna
our
bring in a lot of
local.
people. So it's gonna be a whole other thing. You're gonna fill the hotels, you're gonna have temporary housing, you know?
Mhm.
And you're gonna have people, they'll probably even, you know, build stuff. I mean, that'll be part of it.
They said bunkhouses and trailer
Yeah,
parks and
whatever,
use up all the
yeah.
campgrounds, and so that still generates
It
some
happens-
level of
it
business.
happens fast. I think, you know, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Okay, so where do we, so what are we thinking about the employment category then?
Well, it could be a pro, but as you said, we don't know how significant it will be. I think there's gonna be significant workforce challenges, and if we, I would like to see that.
I think it
study.
almost underlined this whole thing by saying, I mean, there's gonna be a big influx of people, so, you know, then there's gonna be the boom cycle, but then, there's also the downside of it is you have so much going on at the same time, that, you know, we're not really, as a small township, really capable of handling, depending on how much they would do at one time, or how much they would drill and so on. How many wells they put in. But I know from a personal experience, from the Texas group of people I've been talking to, is it happens very rapidly. And it's pretty amazing when they come in.
I think we
Well,
need
the
to-
downside is, I would say, you have a heck of a lot of people, or you don't know what the heck to do with everybody, you know? It's like the gold rush of the
Yeah,
old
when it
days,
comes,
you know?
It comes big, and then in 2
Yeah,
years.
it's
they
gone,
have
they're
to
gone. And then you're
well
left with
through,
what?
Or 4 years or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's right.
And then you're putting up with, or not putting up, you're dwindling back to 2% of what they were, 2% of what actually it took to build it. it takes 2% to run it.
Right, that's
You know, that's their numbers. So-
That sort of thing, you know.
I think somehow we need to break it down between the short-term benefits and the long-term.
We probably do.
That's a good way to drill down on it.
Yeah, because every category almost, the answers were different.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess, trying to think the best way to do that. I'm gonna have to put the links in here. This is just getting a little too complex for one matrix, so I have to think about the best way to organize it. So I guess let's keep going, and then we can come back. We're probably gonna have to come back to that and talk about the short term and the long term at another time.
Could I just, Cindy, could I just make just read the final paragraph on this thing from the Cardi report?
Go ahead.
The pace and scale of gas drilling will be a crucial determinant of the overall impact on the tourism economy in the southern tier. Nearly every negative impact of drilling listed above could be more or less disruptive depending on the pace and the scale of drilling. Fewer permits per year mean a lower volume of truck traffic on the primary and secondary roads, fewer visual impacts and less chance of multiple rigs and view sheds, and increased but not overwhelming demand on hotel rooms and short-term accommodations, fewer pressures placed on local labor supply, and so on.
By regulating it and cutting it back.
And that was the term I was trying to come up with, the pace and the scale.
Pace and scale.
That was what I was trying to come up with.
That's a big if. You know?
Right.
First of all, they're talking about not having gas here to begin with. So.
But I think that's important because that may very well define what our findings and recommendations are. That, and I maybe the only way we can do that is look at regions where the pace or the scale was more than the region could handle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think we need to go where they're actively drilling and make a group of people that we can talk to in the area there we need to have something that's very similar to where we are.
Right. And the same type of drilling.
We're different from Texas and Wyoming, and we need somewhere that.
I was hoping once we laid out these factors, we'd all have a pretty good, idea in our heads of the issues that we're dealing with, and then we would be ready to do that. Because I'm afraid now, if we go, our questions are going to just be all over the map. There won't be focus to it. So hopefully, but it's a little crazy. Okay, so the next one was food and housing. We put those together. I don't know if they should be together.
I think they should be together. I see no problem with them being together, but there again, that would be a temporary problem at best, because after all, whatever drilling they're going to do, it's going to dwindle back to 2 or 3% labor force anyhow. That kind of influx we can handle without a problem at all.
Right. So you said a temporary problem. So you considered it a con?
I would say it would be, if it was any problem at all, it's going to, it'll be a boom for a while.
Okay.
But it isn't going to be I wouldn't say a problem. I would say people are going to make money at it.
Well, I listed it as a pro because the
Right.
businesses that sell food and housing would benefit, or I don't know, if even if you build temporary
Coffee shops,
structures, you have to build them
gas stations, and all the
somewhere.
rest of it are going to do great.
Where did you come out?
Oh yeah. I'm along the same lines. I think people would love it for a while. Some people, I'd say the majority of people,
Yeah.
it'd be just crazy. There'd be money flying everywhere. For a while. But
So-
to some people, that's not the important thing. Like for example, a second home owners would say, who needs this? I should have stayed in New York City.
Well, that goes to quality of life, which is where I was headed, which is the whole food and housing thing, a quality of life issue when it becomes a negative. As opposed to, it's not an economic issue. The economics are positive. The other issues, like how the town's going to deal
That's
with
right.
it,
There's a
and
lot of-
how we as citizens deal with the change, walking into Landers and never seeing anybody anymore. Like those, more quality of life issues, and are there any Doritos on the shelves, So,
The food thing does seem pretty, you know, I mean, obviously Pecs you would think would do better in any restaurants and stuff. I'm just curious, what housing do we have available in this town?
That was my concern.
'Cause
I
we're-
don't think we have
Well, you got
the,
one tower here at the top of
It's-
the hill. I didn't realize he took care of as many as he does. Joe Fosterdale.
Well, yeah.
At the motel?
At the motel.
You know, people stay
You
in the
know.
villa, you know, the higher end people stay in the villa only, you know, there's 400 rooms there.
Well, that or
Monticello.
Monticello's got a bunch of them, you know. I mean, as far as the rooming, those that are imports and don't have their own campers and what have you, they'll have to go to, you know, bed and breakfast or whatever.
or build
You know,
temporary.
motels and hotels.
I wonder who builds the temporary housing.
I don't know. And,
If they
and,
bring their own people in?
and
or-
it's
Norton's
built on
got a
some
building
local
down there. I mean,
land, right?
I see Norton's got a building right here in town.
Doesn't it?
Well, sure. He's got rooms available
Oh, the
upstairs.
building, Norton's, oh,
Yeah.
Western, yeah.
Yeah, the Western, I should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's other places in the town that,
Hmm.
you know, they're not gonna be able to take care of hundreds and hundreds of people at one time, but
Yeah.
I think if you,
Would turn the Delaware Valley School into a temporary housing.
Yeah,
that's-
well,
that's probably a workable solution, though, really.
turn it into a school now.
You know?
Okay, so I think we've got that. I moved it over to a con, more coming from the quality of life perspective, but a pro in terms of the economy and businesses. And
I think the
then,
majority of the people would say the boom would be great. I think the majority of people, and that's probably about the only thing about the whole thing that would be good, but.
then the next really three are somewhat similar. Construction, trucking, engineering services, which are, I think we listed these, and then I was trying to decide in terms of types of businesses that would benefit, right? So, again, I don't see a downside in the, immediate. The question is, maybe workers being drawn to other jobs, and then what do all of these types of companies do when those workers are gone? But
Right.
it's an indirect kind of secondary issue as opposed to an immediate issue, which is they should get more work. What does everybody else think?
No question about it. It's gonna
Um,
be a plus for most all, especially the trucking
you guys
industry.
okay with that too? Okay.
Some of the construction, you're gonna have some of your bigger contractors to begin with. They don't have wellheads and everything else to put in. That's what they've done in Pennsylvania right over here, but they only done it 3 places, and stopped. Now they're gone. So they've shut everything down.
And and why is it shut down?
Too much problems. They're going to friendlier territory. So,
I think a lot of it has to do with the investors, though.
with what?
With the investors and the gas price going down.
That's another part of it, that may be true. You know, they're controlling whether to drill or not, the gas prices.
That's the first I've heard of that.
There's
That's
one
in the-
article.
That's in one of the reports.
It was in
Yeah.
one of the
I
ones.
think I have it.
Well,
It's this
and,
one.
How do you
It's
quantify
this one.
the construction projects that aren't happening because people are holding back because of gas drilling? Because I've been directly involved with a project like that, a barn project that was supposed to happen this year, and the people had purchased all the lumber and they're just holding off. They called the whole project off until they see what's happening. So how do you quantify those numbers?
Just a suggestion, my own opinion. You tell them go do anything they want to do, because I don't think we're ever going to see it here.
And if they do, it's gonna be a long time. I think we're all coming to that conclusion. But,
At least it won't be in my time.
okay, one of the things that I sort of debated in my mind was the whole issue of whether it benefits the town's people or whether it benefits the town. So if our job as a commission is to identify whether or not this is good for the town of Delaware, there's two perspectives there. And that is the people of the town of Delaware and the town as an entity. So
Well, don't you have to consider both?
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the question then becomes, we talked about who benefits, and I think for these first 6 that we just talked about, the beneficiaries are the individual businesses that operate the business, each of the types of businesses that we talked about. And then arguably with employment, the individuals who get the jobs. But then also, does the town benefit, at least indirectly, from increased sales tax?
What about the taxes?
Well, that becomes a question. How does, the current structure, what taxes does the town get that would come from these sources?
The town, well, I know the county's gonna be, you got
County.
sales tax, you got bedroom taxes,
The,
Room tax.
that's what
The
I meant,
county, right?
Room tax, bedroom tax.
yeah. The only place that I saw the town getting some benefit is the potential for increased property tax. So if you have a piece of property that's now a booming business, the value of that property has just increased dramatically. Does that mean the assessed value of that property increases and therefore the property tax? But I'm trying to find another place where this entity called the town benefits, other than the people of the town.
And I think that can be a catch-22, because the property value could go down because.
Well, that's a separate issue,
Yes.
right?
You
That's
know.
right.
Yeah. It's kind of both sides of it.
Mhm.
Are there
Yeah,
any
that could
other
be a double-edged
town
sword.
benefits
Yeah.
that we're not thinking of? Because the town doesn't get sales tax, right?
No.
Is there an indirect benefit from sales tax?
County gets it, which in turn we have to pay them,
So I guess it is indirect because of
It's an
the,
indirect way of us benefiting.
right, of
But
us
all the
getting
towns
some,
would benefit, if it had just happened here, all the towns would benefit pretty the same
right.
from one town receiving any big boon on taxes,
Right.
so.
So I guess it's indirect, but
Yeah.
it's difficult to quantify. I don't know how sizable it is. So then the only other one I came up with was increased property taxes based on increased values. And then there's the negative side of that.
The royalty payments, how is that taxed? Just as income tax?
No, that's a state tax,
That would be
not-
as income.
Not your ad valorem tax. You pay taxes on your income, certainly. I mean, that gets taxed like anybody else's income.
Right.
No, it's a state tax, you're right.
Right.
And federal.
State and federal, yeah.
So really the town is insane.
But I agree, we have to look at it from both perspectives, the people.
Wasn't Ed at the last
Well-
meeting, didn't he say that something about that he was gonna kind of look into that, whether there were any other possibilities for a town to generate revenue?
On the
Well,
ad
one of the things
valorem
was the
tax
roads.
and
The roads, it was gonna be some kind of, Ed just basically
There
asked
it
for a
is.
payment for road usage. Didn't that take effect yet, Donnie?
It
Were they-
wasn't that.
Oh,
that didn't
It was a
fly.
There was,
Segregation,
Severance,
severance
Yeah.
tax.
There are two separate taxes, there's a
Right.
severance tax and there's the ad valorem tax,
right.
which is, ad valorem is basically taxing the declared value produced on that land. But I don't think that would go to the town per se, I'm not sure, I'm not sure how that works. It's part of the property tax.
Because then, that goes right to, but that's kind of in our discussion for next meeting, which is
The
municipal.
severance thing is another, totally different.
Right,
That's a tax that's levied by the state, at least the ones I know of, to the companies for the argument being to cover any possible damages.
Right.
But on the property tax, I don't know if you've seen other studies, but from what I've seen, it looks to me like the major argument is that property taxes go down. except for, I mean, the properties that increase in value are the ones that have leases.
Right.
But those that don't actually see their values decline.
Right, and I would expect that it's possible that the properties whose values increase due to having the wells on their site would increase more than the other values would decrease, but that's still
There
not
is that study,
okay.
the one by Levine on the ad valorem tax, which I don't remember it very clearly, but the basic point I think that he makes is that the ad valorem tax does not produce enough revenue to compensate for the loss of the property values and the property taxes on the other property. In other words, even though you're getting an increase from the properties that have leases and are producing, that is more than offset by the decline in the property values overall. I think that's the argument in that particular, and that's Oswego County. So I don't know.
But I told you, made a statement last week that this brings up more questions in my mind than it does answers when I read this, because at the same time, I wonder how much has our real estate already gone up, more than it would have, as soon as they heard the word gas.
That's a good question.
Big
You
land.
know, look in the last 5 or 7 years, what real estate has done, 10 years, versus, you know, as soon as they heard gas, oh boy, now everybody's on the bandwagon. Price is going. Is it gonna come back to normal? Is it gonna be lower than what it would have been if it had kept going along and there was no gas mentioned?
Right.
I
I
don't
think the
know.
property, a lot of the second homeowners, the property values have went down when they hear gas. You know, that's a big concern when they're buying a
Well, they
house.
claim it made a drop here in 2006 and 7 and 8. I don't see it. Where did it drop? What houses are half price now? You know, the economy didn't
All the
change
ones
it.
that aren't selling.
Yeah, right.
All right, well, obviously, we've got more work to do to understand the tax issue, and maybe we need to put that as a follow-up for Ed
Okay.
That
to
would be
talk
good,
to
yeah.
us about, and I don't know if the county commission, or whatever they called the county group, did any work in that regard.
There's a gal that's supposed to meet us here, right, on the 17th, I believe. Is that right, Brad?
Oh,
Is that,
to answer your county question, I'm wondering if now you might be ready to reach out to Heather Jaxie, which I introduced to the commission via email.
But next time is the first meeting, we're gonna
No.
talk about municipal issues, so we
Well-
probably won't be until after that.
Okay, to finish my point, I ran into Heather the other day, and she said she might indeed not be the exact person to answer a particular question, but she's absolutely committed, being part of the county planning people, that she will get you to the right person or get the answer for you. Now, as far as next meeting, don't forget that is when you'll be able to ask some of these questions to Jeanette Barth, who's going to come and speak at next meeting.
January
You
7th.
have a blank look on your
I didn't
face.
think we agreed to that.
I said I would ask her after the last meeting, and I did, and then I emailed you guys the next day saying she agreed to come and speak.
Okay.
And I asked for that to be-
you think it's too early?
Well, that's my,
Little early,
yeah, we're still trying to frame it all out, so
She's the
we're gonna
economics person.
have more, I know, but I wanna frame it all out, because everything's so complex and intertwined. You can't talk about one issue, as you see, right? Every time we talk about one issue, we say, well, that's really affects quality of life. It might be a pro here, but it's a negative in terms of quality of life. Or it's a negative to the town and a pro to quality of life, which I haven't found yet, but we'll
Well, she-
assume that anything's possible.
She wants to answer the economic questions. I mean, as far as I was even thinking that I would jot down some of these things, like your B2B negatives. That was what you were referring to it as. You said you were looking for data showing shortages to established businesses, or at least that's how I wrote it down. And it occurred to me I was going to ask you about this. I could drop her an email and ask her some of the things that still seem unanswered. On the other hand, I could have you guys
Do
connect
we
with her.
wanna
Yeah.
we wanna
I-
have that
I
conversation
don't
yet,
think
or do we
wanna-
wanna get
yeah,
through
we have
all
to-
of this first?
I think it's too much interference right now.
Well, this is unfortunate that I said I would invite her. I invited her. I
Uh,
told you I invited her,
Yeah.
and now you're asking me to uninvite her.
I thought we walked away saying we weren't gonna invite her. I didn't see the email, but I thought we agreed that we weren't ready because we needed to frame all this out.
Not yet, but this you were going to be working on this for the last 2 weeks, and then there'll be a month before.
Yeah, but
the
we
next
won't have it
meeting.
finished at the next meeting. We'll be talking about it at the next meeting. So you guys decide. I don't
Well,
wanna.
we're trying to get through this thing here somehow, and it's gonna take time. I don't make, I'm 50-50 on that. She can come in,
She might be able to get you closer
Yeah.
to your answers, even if it's not, the
I don't
final
wanna spin
result.
her wheels. I'm sort of torn. I don't wanna spin her wheels and uninvite her after she's already
Yeah.
been invited yet. I don't wanna
Yeah.
spin her wheels, have her come here and then find that we need her to come back in a month.
There's another possibility. It was 2 years ago, I believe, when Sullivan County had 3 different informational meetings at the Monticello High School. And all of them were filmed. Jeanette Barth was one of the participants. There were some other people that would be excellent sources for you to, or resources for you to check into. But you could, or Brad could disinvite her, and in the meantime, you could task yourselves with viewing that portion of that meeting at Monticello. She was very informative.
I didn't realize that just now. Which we
this
just
is-
said
this
we
is-
weren't sure how
yeah,
this was funded.
I'm reading the
J.M. Barth.
Yeah.
That's Jeanette
Oh,
Barth.
Jeanette Barth.
I didn't realize it was the same person.
She's an
Let me just see
independent
the spelling.
consultant.
Yeah,
She's also was the chief economist for the Metropolitan Transit Authority. So she's a very, very qualified person. She knows her stuff.
And I don't know about inviting her back after.
Well, let us think about it a
Right,
little
and I don't
bit.
know about inviting her back a second time, but like you just mentioned, but if you had her and to pick her brains and got your questions answered, or maybe even came up with new ones, I feel confident that she would welcome follow-up questions in email or on the phone or something too.
Well, generally
Yeah.
speaking, this is her position here. The experience of gas drilling in Texas does not support the assumption of a positive economic impact for New York State. And that's the way it starts.
Yeah,
So
well,
you
and
know,
We've
we're
all
sort of
read
leading,
this, so
right. You know what's leading up to, right?
this is, I don't know, what do you think, Earl?
Well, the truth, I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, I would rather see her make one trip in a month than to make 2 trips.
That's what
And
she scheduled is for 4 weeks from now.
that's what I would think. But, I think that would work and fit in a hell of a lot better.
Have her come at the next meeting.
And, well,
That's, we scheduled the next one in a month because of
Oh,
the
all right.
holidays. That's the problem. We're not gonna be finished with this.
Right.
And I feel like,
no, yeah, you're right. It would have to be set back further than a month.
probably
Yeah.
the first February meeting, I'm
Yeah.
thinking. That would give us through January to get what we're doing. It's not gonna be finished.
Right.
I don't know if it's ever gonna be finished, but at least we'll have our framework and we'll all have our heads in hopefully similar places and then able to ask questions. I don't know.
Well, tell her to thank her kindly, but
Well,
she would.
If you're wondering about how to get this data, like the example I just gave, will you have that answer on your own before she comes, or does it make sense to say, well, these are some of the questions, and you've come up to these conclusions. Where did that data come from? And let her provide that information, the sources to you, rather than you figuring out where the sources are. I'm just saying you can use her as a resource that way, even if you still don't have the answer to all your questions.
We'd be segueing a little, but that isn't a bad thing to
No.
do.
No.
And we've both just tried to come up with our sources and we're unsuccessful, so I'd love her to do that. But, then obviously we have to decide if we're comfortable with those, whatever they are, or if it's just her, if she's her source.
I guess I'm with you.
So,
I don't have the answer. I'm not, certainly not against it, that's for sure. I mean,
All right,
you
so
know, I
let's
don't wanna
not-
see her making.
I don't wanna mess up Brad.
To go.
Yeah,
she's
I don't wanna
a-
mess you up, Brad, but yeah, we definitely
Let me just
cross
say
wires a little
one
bit
more
there.
thing about Jeanette, so maybe you can kind of decide from there. She's Jeanette M. Barth, PhD, president of J.M. Barth and Associates Incorporated, an economic research and consulting firm. Has worked in the fields of economic analysis and isometric modeling and forecasting for over 35 years. She received her BA from Johns Hopkins University and her MA and PhD from the University of Maryland. Several of her former positions include Chief Economist, New York Metropolitan Transportation Authority, and Consultant and Account Manager, Chase Econometrics, and Interactive Data Corporation. She has also taught in various economic courses at both the undergraduate and the graduate level. So, pretty good background there, you know, I mean, but well, it's up to you guys, you know, I mean,
if you want to, it kind of depends on what you need her for. You know, if you want to have more of your ducks in a row and you don't think you're going to have it by then, that's one thing, and you can postpone her. If you want to use her as a resource to get your ducks in a row, then maybe next month is a good time.
I think so.
All right, rather than mess you up, we'll go with it.
yeah. It won't be embarrassed.
Well, it is when you make those
Blush a little,
arrangements.
but, you know.
I
Yeah,
understand,
that's right.
you know, nobody wants to say, you could just blame it on us, but we don't, yeah.
No, I would have. I'm very diplomatic.
I
I
know.
said they're not going to
No,
be quite ready.
that's fine.
She can help you, you know, get a direction for finding out the information that you're
Right.
you're
That's
seeking
what I
to
was
get.
And wherever the holes are, that we
That's-
leave,
January 7th.
right,
Okay.
We want to
okay.
perhaps take advantage of Brad's offer and prepare a set of questions for her. You
Oh,
could
we
do
will.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep moving with what we're trying to get through here.
Is the court gonna be coming in at 6:30?
No, the
Oh.
sign on the door said nothing tonight.
Oh, I see,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
I was thinking it was 7, thank you. But I want to get us out of here way before 7 anyway. Okay, so we got through those, the multipliers, in my mind, that's not a
Not a big
pro
factor, yeah.
or a
No,
con
no.
factor,
Yeah.
but it's gonna, the answer's gonna be numerous.
I would say it's a con factor, the multipliers, wouldn't it? I'd say multipliers is con for the most part. And the way it was explained here anyway in the Cardi report.
Well, a multiplier should be a positive. It's whether or not you, that study,
Well,
whether
no,
you
it's-
accept that those multipliers are really, were not
For gas
overstated.
drilling compared to agriculture, gas drilling was, you know, way lower than
Yeah.
agriculture. So, I mean, to me, that would make drilling, you know, not so good. That's the way I would look at it.
I don't quite understand that. If we're all gonna work on $50, it's gotta stay in here, cause we gotta have it in order to live. But if somebody gets a revenue of a couple $100,000, yeah, the percentages drop way off. Well, we all benefit, big time. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Could I?
When the volume changes, the percentages give you some real screwy numbers.
Go ahead, Tom.
There's no doubt, there's multiplier effects in everything, all right? The question is the degree, and I think the studies show pretty conclusively that the gas industry and oil industry has a very low multiplier relative to other, like manufacturing, farming, which have a much greater. Here's how to look at it. Earl's right. So you get somebody who gets a huge royalty. Is he going to spend all of it locally? Probably not. If he gets a big enough royalty, he might buy a condo in Miami or something, you know. As opposed to a farmer who is not making a lot of money, but the money that he makes, he is spending over and over again locally because he's buying feed, he's paying a veterinarian, he's paying somebody to fix his tractor, what have you. So I mean, that's the way it works. This industry is a very lucrative industry and has a lot of money, but most of that money goes out. It doesn't remain local. It goes to wherever the corporate headquarters are, or to the families of transient workers, because they'll spend some money, no doubt. And you're right, there'll be food and housing and those things. But that's temporary. Most of their income is going to be sent to their families wherever they came from. So that multiplier effect is relatively restricted. I'm just saying in terms of judging the value of the money and how far it goes locally, it's not a pro compared to other. That's, you know.
And I don't know if I'd call it a con, because we're not choosing really. Well, you could argue we're choosing between one or the other,
A lot
but
of money, no doubt, a lot of money, but it's going to be brief, and then it's gone, as opposed to a very slow, gradual economic growth where the money pretty much remains more on the local level. That's the balance.
well, that was really the argument. The other thing that I saw, and this was in the Susan, I'll find her name. She's the one involved in this. Christofferson. Her point was also that the studies that show it as a dramatic positive suggest that the money gets spent locally, or the bulk of it. So if you earn $100,000, the person who gets $100,000 in royalty payments or $1 million in royalty payments, whatever it is going to spend it all here. And the answer to that, I agree. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I see a portion of it. The question is what percentage gets spent locally and what, percentage gets spent elsewhere. So.
Could I read the conclusion from Jeanette, from her article? She says, the entire Marcellus Shale region in New York may be at risk economically and environmentally. While the environmental risks have been a focus of concern, many stakeholders have assumed that a positive economic impact may result. In reality, the economic impact may be very well be negative, and the likelihood is that gas drilling would adversely affect other economic activities such as tourism, sport fishing, and hunting. Sports fishing and hunting is a pretty big thing around here. And to some extent, gas drilling and these other industries are likely to be mutually exclusive. The net effect is what must be considered. So, how big is hunting? I don't know, Earl. You tell me. You know what I mean?
Hunting has taken quite a hit in the head in the last couple of years when they changed the season to a Saturday opening. It was the worst thing they ever done for the economy. It was to try to get the kids, into the program so opening day would be on Saturday for the kids. But there again, the multiplier effect didn't. They found out that guys were coming up on Friday night, staying Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, eating out, be ready to go hunting Monday morning. Now they come sailing in Friday night, hunt Saturday and Sunday, and they're gone. And they didn't go to town at all. They went to the hunting club, and that's it. So it's been a negative all the way. However, we do have a lot, there's still a lot of hunting that goes on here. The locals still hunt, and I don't know if that would ever change, but,
It'll be interesting
if the hunting clubs want to lease their land for gas drilling.
Well, those that own it probably would, yes, but there's not very many that are in that, like Beaver Brook and Finsfors and Feathers, and those that own the property, I would say probably you're right, But as far as the average hunting club around here that just go lease the land for hunting, we got nothing to say about it. It's up to the landowner.
And just to finish that thing, it says, it is important for decision makers in New York State to act responsibly and insist on thorough, relevant, and unbiased analysis prior to making the bold and possibly inaccurate assumption that gas drilling in the Marcellus Shale will result in positive net economic benefits to the New York State and its counties. As decisions regarding gas drilling in the Marcellus Shale have potentially severe and in some cases irreversible consequences in the form of health, environmental, and infrastructural degradation, it is imperative that all the possible economic impact outcomes be fully understood. And I think that's what we have to search for here. What the heck is, what is good? A short-term thing, and in the end, you end up on top, with all the empty buildings around that there people are hanging, were living in for a couple of years, and the real estate it went boom for a while. Now you have big tax bills, and I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna bring us back to our matrix. Okay, so
Thank you.
the next, the next two issues that we listed were banking and mortgages, and then homeowner insurance implications. And as I was going through this, I questioned why they were in the economic factor list and why they're not in quality of life. What did everybody else think?
I agree.
Do you think, which column do you think they should be in, or?
I don't know what are the banking mortgage issues?
Whether or not once
The bank will take a mortgage on property that's leased.
that's leased,
Oh,
or
okay.
whether, neighboring properties would be able to get a mortgage
Okay,
based
I
on
see.
property
I think
values.
it's
And
more economic. It's my
I guess it's economic, everything we're discussing is
Everything
economic,
we're
but,
talking is economics, but one is indirect and the other is the downside. Well,
okay, so is there any upside to any of this discussion? Is this a pro or a con?
the banking business, I would say, would do quite well.
You always do.
With the amount of influx, with the amount of influx of money that we're supposed to be getting, I would say the banking industry will do quite well. Now, as far as them holding mortgages on probably, that's gonna be, you're gonna have to go internal on the bank, find out what their feelings are.
And that really was the question, not whether banks would make out well, but
Exactly.
well, maybe maybe we have to ask that
Well,
question.
we touched base when Ed was here. That's why I brought Ed into the conversation last week about this thing. And of course, the First National Bank of Jeffersonville isn't your typical bank, I would say. It's they don't do business quite the same way as the bigger banks do. But according to Ed, what he said it wouldn't be a problem.
What wouldn't be a problem?
Well,
Getting a
to getting a mortgage on a leased land that was leased to a
I think
well
you're right. I
controlled
think we
company.
need to ask the banks,
Yeah,
because I don't.
that's according to Ed.
Well,
If I was
it's
on the
gonna-
bank board, that's not how
That would
I
be
would
yeah,
feel.
Yeah.
But I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, that's it. We ought to get a banker here. Maybe
Yeah.
somebody here that would know that. That would be another thing to
You
do.
gotta get several bankers, not just one,
Right,
to offer their opinion on something like this.
right. We probably need a
Well, Ed's a trustee. He's not really a
Yeah.
banker. You know what I mean? He's a trustee. So he knows a lot of stuff about it. But
The assumption was just made that, no question about it, banks, if drilling came here, banks would make out like bandits. That's what I heard here, if I heard it correctly. And I want to know, what is that assumption based on? What are the specifics? Banks, they take in money, they lend money. If you got a lot of transient workers coming in here, are they increasing a bank's bottom line by, cashing checks and stuff like that? How does that specifically work?
Yeah, I don't
If
know
that
that I-
if that assumption is made, or that statement is made,
Well, I made the statement, and as soon as anybody makes money, you generally take it to the bank, put it in the bank, don't you?
yeah. And
Well,
so-
that means the bank has that money to deal out to anybody else that's looking for a loan. So the capital in the bank is.
So you're saying that there is absolutely no question that if drilling was to come to the town of Delaware, that the banks in the town of Delaware are necessarily going to be better off as a result of that?
I would
it-
say
it-
they're gonna turn a lot more money.
It's an assumption that's made, but it needs, we need to separate, in Ed Sykes' words, we need to separate fact from fiction and find the truth. Is that absolutely true? can you find out from going to places like Bradford County
Good
and,
question.
you know,
I think
and,
it's
and
a
find
better
out?
for another
Right.
area.
Yeah, I think that's something we need to do a little bit more research on, so I left that one open. We don't have an answer for that yet.
You do have one report that a couple of banks, you know, have already come out in public, you know, bigger banks, multinational ones that have said that they're not going to give mortgages to leased land. Wells Fargo, and I think there was another one. But I don't remember which report that was. I'm pretty sure I sent it, though.
An insurance question is related to that.
Right.
Nationwide is no
That's
longer
Nationwide.
insured.
Right.
So, okay, so that needs more. Maybe somebody can take that issue on for the next meeting and wrestle with it and bring us back some sources of data for both the banking mortgage and the insurance.
Hey, here's something
Question.
here you might be interested in, Cindy. I came across. This is the physical effects of fracking in Oswego County, New York. And Otsego, I'm sorry. And this one here, it talks about according to the model developed below, it is likely that town, county, and school district revenues from the ad valorem tax will be substantial, but will not equal the loss in real estate taxes resulting from declining real property values in the areas surrounding gas wells.
See, I struggle with statements like that, though. I don't know that I saw it in that study, but I saw it in a similar study. And property taxes don't decrease. I mean, the town has to generate a certain amount of property tax across its own property owners. So just because property values decrease, it'd be nice if we could walk into the town and say my taxes, you know, go down, but they don't, because across the township they have to generate the same amount of taxes. So on an owner by owner basis, I guess you could argue that would make some sense, but that's not logical across a township.
Well, they're reassessed if you sell. So if your property value, if it's appraised at less, then it's assessed for in the beginning, then they're gonna tax on at the market value. So if the market value goes down, then the tax on the house goes down. And the only other way usually I think it's reassessed is if you get a permit to do something. I mean,
And usually
they
it's
just don't
in
pick
the
out a
up
house and
direction.
say,
Not in the down direction, but
I
we
can't
haven't.
imagine a property value not going down with a 60-foot well right next to it.
Right.
You know,
Well,
300
Right,
feet from
but
it.
we're not really talking about whether the property value goes down. We're talking
That's
about, no,
that's
that
what's
said
taken.
real estate taxes. The question is,
I'm
do
talking
the
about
taxes, do the
Real
property, there's
okay.
a big difference
Yes,
between
sir.
your property
I agree.
value and the
Okay.
taxes
Yeah,
that you
that's
pay, right,
That's
as we all know.
Well, but I was
So-
just saying property values. though. I
Yeah,
didn't say
well,
taxes.
I don't think.
You're the one that said taxes.
No, that said taxes.
No,
It
this
could
is
be a
property
double
values.
whammy.
Real estate
If
taxes.
your
Real property
value
values.
goes down,
Real property
then
values.
you have to
Okay.
pay more. If your property value goes down and your tax rates go up, so because you've got to, you know,
Right, exactly.
make up
Yes,
the difference there.
exactly.
So that could be a
Yes.
double whammy for a lot of people.
That's right.
Well, arguably your taxes are the same unless you lose.
That's right.
Your taxes end up the same amount unless you
Exactly,
lose
just the rate is
homeowners.
gonna change.
If there are less people to contribute to the tax base, then your individual taxes rise. But if there's the same number of people, and we could, I'm sure, find studies to suggest that the number of people does go down. We'd have to look at that, but it doesn't change just based on the value, because you got the same number of people living in the town, and we're the ones who pay for the cost to run the town.
Well,
So we pay the same thing.
But my other point was that
I might not be happy that my house
ad
is worth less,
valorem
but I pay the
tax
same thing.
appears to be a local tax is the other point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get into that a little bit more this before the next week, just so I
And I think,
figure that thing part of it out.
I didn't hear what you said.
The ad valorem tax, I'm gonna try to get into that thing a little bit to see if I can, because here it looks almost on the face of it, it seems like it's a local tax. That, I mean, really,
we
that's,
have to be
That's
able
the way I
to, as a
understood it,
township,
too.
come up with a way to tax or
Based
charge
on-
fees, or I don't
on
know
the
what it is, but
property.
we have to be
It
able
is,
to.
it's based on the property tax. The ad valorem tax is simply a percentage of the value created on that property that is being taxed as part of the The company pays the tax based on the property
Who do
value.
they pay?
That
Who do
goes
they
to-
They
They
pay
pay
the county, I guess, it would be the county.
I think
Yeah,
it's-
well, they're talking
I
about
think it's-
township here.
I think it's the state that receives the taxes, and it's based on the gas that's produced, you know, and a rate that's applied to that, the amount.
Well, that's the big
But-
question, who
yeah,
gets it?
There-
And
There's a lot of possible places online where you can go to, you know, get an understanding of the ad valorem taxing. Would you mind if I just posed a question, because you're talking about property values and things like that, real estate values? There are several realtors, you know, in the town of Delaware. Some that are pro-drilling, some that are, you know, apparently not so pro-drilling. And I've heard from some of them that they, you know, they've got experiences and, you know, that with regard to the impact, direct impact on their business from not the fact of gas drilling, but the fact that it might happen here in the future. So I would think that it'd be relatively easy to ask these realtors if they would come, you know, and tell you, you know, or write to you what their experiences are. I know that there's at least 3 or 4 who have described experiences where their sales are down because potential clients are concerned about the possible impact of gas drilling. And there may be others. I know that there's at least one realtor in town who's vociferous and very much pro-drilling, and maybe he could describe his experiences if his business has been, you know, if he's seen an uptick in business because of the potential of gas drilling. So that would be a way too that you could really localize what, you know, instead of generalizing and, you know, what is the impact on, you know, real estate values and stuff like that. These people are experts, and they, you know, would have their finger on the pulse of this. And
I think we do need some
it would be
information
very
about
local.
how it affects real estate.
Yes.
But I appreciate that. I just don't know. I think we all just have opinions about it. I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
we really know.
Yeah.
But I do think we could find out from other areas that have already
Sure.
gone through this.
Sure.
What was the direct impact on real estate
Well, what I'm saying is
values?
that there are realtors who are experiencing right now either pro or positive or negative impacts as a result of, you know, or because of the potential of gas drilling coming to the town of Delaware. And I think it would be very easy to get real, truthful, you know, information about what the impact is here, right now, you know, just simply by asking these people.
No, I understand completely where you're coming from. I don't know, again, well, you guys tell me if we wanna spend time doing that. I would love to have their opinion, but I also think
You
that.
know, I'd love to jump into your matrix right now, Cindy.
Yeah. We need that projector.
Yeah, that's right.
I added another column,
I
another
did call
factor.
that. I
and
left
it's
a
called-
message. I don't know what's happening with the projector.
Okay.
Yes,
So
'cause
I added
have
another
the
factor. By
ad
the way,
valorem tax income versus loss of tax revenue right here.
okay.
I have a chart set up and everything. So yeah, what's the story with the projector? What happened?
I called Ed. I said, I'm calling about
Yeah.
the projector, and I have not heard back.
I think he was away, wasn't he? And we
Yeah, I
said we
think he
needed
was.
it by next meeting, so we
Yeah.
got a couple more weeks, but,
So-
okay. So I added, I'm gonna have to keep us moving, cause we're already
Yeah,
at
I know.
6:40 and we haven't even finished our first task, and we have task number 2 to complete tonight. But I added, impact on home values as another factor. I also added impact on tourism, and then questioned, because that's come up a couple of times, it came up big time for me as I was doing research, but I don't know if that
Do you have
belongs.
hunting? You have hunting and fishing in that?
I added that to the quality of life, but I think it needs to go here too.
Under tourism, maybe.
Yes, impact on other industries, I'll call it. How about
That's
that?
still pretty big, isn't it, Earl? I mean,
Huh?
hunting's still pretty big around here, right? I mean, it's-
Hunting's as big as it probably ever was, but
Fishing.
not as it ever was, but it's
doesn't bring the money in quite the money.
not
before.
anywhere near the
But
money
how
that
about
it did
fishing?
bring.
Fly fishing in Delaware, isn't it?
Fishing, that does bring in you know.
Canoeing,
But as far as tourism in this county, compared to what it was in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we are doing 1/10 of what we had then.
Do we
And it's
group,
getting worse instead of better.
do we group hunting, sport fishing, canoeing all under tourism? Are we giving them a separate category?
maybe
Tourism and recreation.
That's
Yeah, I mean,
usually
it's really part of the same thing.
Yeah, with the tourism
tourism and
recreation.
recreation.
Are you gonna send out a revised matrix?
Of course.
Okay,
Yes, I
thank
will.
you.
Okay.
Are you gonna make a movie about it?
Oh, my goodness.
No, he's making a movie, right?
All right, so, yes, I'm going to, and I'm gonna ask you guys, I'm sure I haven't captured everything, so we haven't done a good job tonight of talking about who benefits, but for the most part, as I said in the beginning, it was the individual businesses that benefited. We really haven't found a benefit for the town yet, unless we do a little, once we do a little more research on taxes and fees, that would obviously be a town.
But there ought to be a
Benefit.
slot somewhere where we can leave some of these, when we get to the people that have the experience. We
Yes.
get to a neighboring town or whatever that has this experience. That's where, let them
Start to
answer
make
the
the check,
question. Then you
yeah.
get 6, 8 people with the same opinion. It generally sways it just about right.
Right.
you know.
Okay. The only one we didn't tackle yet, well, really two, shift of workers to drilling jobs and the impact on local businesses.
Maybe
That's
that's,
awful minuscule, but
yeah.
I don't know. I haven't found in anything that I have gone through, I haven't found a mention of this. We came up with this. I don't know. I think I added it.
For percentages, how much comes in? or
I
what do
haven't
you-
found anything that even mentions.
Oh, yeah,
it
yeah,
as a
I've run
concern.
across it. I don't have it on the top of my head, but
Okay.
I've run across
So
some.
we
I
Why
have
don't
the
we,
information.
Put there as an issue?
Yeah, maybe we can talk to
okay.
Jeanette.
Okay,
Maybe
that'd be
she
good.
has more
Put that on our
information
list.
about that.
Questions for her? Okay.
And that'd be something too on your field trip,
Mm-hmm.
where you could talk with,
Yeah.
employers in, Pennsylvania and find out what the real impact might have been of that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that'd be a whole thing to set up too. Make sure we have, set it up so we can meet the people, call them in beforehand, set up the meeting, try to get as much done as we can at one time, Get as much information as we can.
And then we didn't really tackle the whole bust cycle question. But to me, the bust cycle in and of itself isn't a factor. It's the things that come with the bust that we probably need to deal with. And, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I would like to make a suggestion that, I don't know if it's possible, but you could approach the Sullivan County Department of Planning and ask them if there is data that they have or that they might be able to get
I
on.
look at the website, there's not much
Yeah,
there.
no, but
No,
I mean
that's
specifically,
pretty bad.
I have a sort of vague contact with the commissioner. I mean, I could send you an email with a draft of something you could send
I
him.
actually have some contacts there, so that's
Okay,
not a problem.
But my point is, I think what's really important to know is the number of people employed in agriculture, tourism and recreation, and second homeowner related in services, carpenters, plumbers, electricians, landscapers, etc. Get the numbers, if we can, even just an estimate of the employment in those sectors, the income that's generated by those sectors currently and projections over time. That would be important information because that gets to the bust cycle, because those are the things that would be lost. So how important are they? I think it'd be a good thing to know.
And they already have a report that's produced.
Well, there is one I looked at on the second homeowner, but it's not as satisfying as I would like in these terms. It doesn't have a whole lot of economic data. It has more like, the location where they buy properties, where they shop, and so on. But I think what more important to us, I just go by my own experience and the number of people on my road that I hire for this, that, and the other. I buy wood, I have I have people repair constantly, you know, that kind of thing. And that adds up. But it'd be nice to know just how important that is.
Number of people employed by.
I'll send you an email. You can look
Okay,
at it and
all right.
decide
Yeah.
what you want to
Okay,
do with
you've
it.
got Heather in the planning,
Yeah, I'm pretty.
The IDA probably has information on that, the economic development, people there in the county. There is probably a lot of that information that could be culled out.
Because when you're talking about bust, you're really talking about what is it that we lose.
Yes.
So we want to know that.
And that's why I said it's not really a category in and of itself. Those items that we lose are the categories that we need to deal with. So,
I
okay.
can, do you want me to reach out to county planning for some of that stuff?
That'd be great.
Cindy, I'd just like to mention something. When the drillers come in, this is typically what happens. The facilities typically include man camps, essentially trailer parks, depots for equipment, these areas that they have, because they have big trucks with to hold water and the material that's brought up out of the wells. They have all that stuff. They have staging areas for all the stuff that's going on, gravel quarries, water extraction sites, wastewater treatment plants capable of handling toxic material, injection wells, and disposal areas, and gas storage facilities. So you have all these things. That's a big area. You know, a lot of facilities just for that. You know, I don't know where you're going to put that, but in your matrix somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But
Okay.
that's a lot of stuff, though. You know.
Well,
That's a lot of-
I think, well, maybe not. I was gonna say, I think we captured some of it, but, okay.
It's more like a
let's-
land use issue, and quality of life, I would say.
Maybe. So I'm just trying to decide. I wanted to get through the municipal issues because we said we would list those so we could research those between now and the next meeting. But we clearly haven't finished everything that we need to do on the economic factors, but I think at least we've got a better handle on it and we've got, you know, we've got them listed. Do you want me to just read what we had previously come up with for municipal and what I've added?
Sure.
And then you guys can see
I'm
what's
thinking
missing?
that we should hold off on that, and for our next homework assignment, we should come up with questions for.
Okay. You don't think we can do both?
I think it's covered.
I mean, I know we'll have a month, but it is the holidays, so.
Yeah, I think we need to
Okay.
finish
so then,
this part first.
Okay.
you
Well,
know,
and we said we
really
were
have-
gonna do a more thorough analysis of the tax issue, the banking and mortgage issue, and then we
I'll
do
do the
need to come
employment.
up with the,
Part.
okay. So you're gonna talk to the county
Mhm.
about trying to get some statistics on employment figures.
Yes.
Who wants to take on trying to dive into the tax issues a little bit more?
I think I got the look. Yeah, that's fine.
You got the look?
I got the look.
Did you give him the look? I gave him the look. Ah,
Craig
okay.
volunteered.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other one was banking and mortgage. You'll take that? And how about I take the real estate question
Okay.
and see if we can, okay, so did you get all that?
I was wondering if we could do this. We have all these studies in front of us, but I'm looking at one thing, you're looking at another thing, and you're looking
Well,
at
that's why the matrix will bring it all
Yeah, but
together,
I was
once
wondering
we
if we
can
could.
see
I
it.
know. Yeah, that's probably the best way. Yeah, if you put it up there,
I
because I'm thinking if
listed-
we looked at the same thing, because we all have it on the computers. All these studies that have been done. I have all the stuff here.
Yeah.
If we could look at the same thing and go down through and scroll
Right.
through the different studies, because you have Levine, you have Jeanette, you have we have 3 or 4 studies right here.
I think that may
If we
be,
went through each one of them together, we could kind of get a better handle on this thing.
and maybe that's the approach we need to take, kind of what Kara just said. Instead of moving on to a new set of factors,
Mm.
we
Yeah.
tackle these a little bit more
Let's
first.
yeah.
And what I was doing is listing the name of the study, but that's not proving to be helpful. I've really got to put the links. So if you guys can provide, when you're
Excuse me,
filling out the
Cindy, I haven't
matrix.
read this one right here. Part of it is missing.
Okay,
But everything that's been given to us so far is negative.
What's
The
negative?
the answer to everything I've read so far, the answer is no.
Not if you read the Penn State
Boom
study.
versus bust, the total in the end says no. Everything I've read so far.
Yeah, well, no drilling, you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, the
is the
pros are-
answer of everything I've read in this book. And there's like 4 or 5 more studies in here, books that say, the total in the end says no. So now if we're gonna use the same information, put it on the board, I would assume our answer is gonna be no.
Yeah, but we're all-
Do we want to just end right now?
Yeah, but
That's not what I'm saying.
you know what, this is what I'm trying.
Somebody's gotta come
I
up
think
with
it's
some
more, I
positive
think it's
stuff.
more,
When I read a letter
but there's
like
more
this
to
one-
it than that.
When I read a letter like this one the other day, there's not
Well-
one positive thing in
Yeah,
the
I know.
letter.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I understand what they're getting at, I understand their concern, but if there's not one positive thing in the letter, we're on the agenda here. That letter can go in the garbage as far as I'm concerned. I know what you feel just by, you can come in and say 3 words, I'm against it. Walk
Yeah.
back out the door, I believe you.
I'd like just to add something to this, Earl, because we should be getting bigger than that here. We should be giving the townships our study, and at the end of this thing, our conclusion, we're gonna say, we're gonna give them the reasons, we're gonna look at every portion of this thing and say, this is our view. We're trying not to take a positive or a negative side. We're gonna give them our view and state this, but this should be looked at. For example, the road should be looked at. The staging areas should be looked at. We should have all the answers for that we can give the township, so they can look at this thing in a way that'll help the town.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the way I would do it, rather
agree.
than saying, well, you're pro or con, you know.
And back it up with data.
And back it up with data, and we have it all here. You know what I mean? I don't see a lot of good things either.
But there is a
Ed. I
lot
mean,
of
It's just
pro.
not a lot of good
Most
things
of it
about it.
comes.
I agree, there is a lot of pro, and I've read some pro, but, you know,
The boom, the boom.
exactly, but, no, not necessarily,
No, I
you know, because this money goes on for 20 to 30, and like you said, some 50 years. So it's not just gonna be over in 2 years. And as far as everybody moving out and the business is gone, everything, I mean, holy Christ, they're painting a picture that nobody would go there. That's not so, you know.
Well, have you received on your, it's not a website, but your email inbox, have you received any input from people in the town there are people that are obviously pro-drilling
You know what?
and who've been very vocal about it, but they're not showing up here.
They're not here.
Yeah.
They said you won't see them. You won't see them, but you don't have a
Why is
reason.
that?
Because they're not.
Isn't that what the purpose is for, you know, to allow the people that
Right.
have their
Yep.
facts and figures and to present them, so,
Yep.
yeah.
I mean, I
Died,
do.
Gravy's busy.
I do think we've had a lot of data that was pro. It didn't necessarily get submitted to us, but most of those Penn State studies, the end result is positive.
There's plenty
So,
there, yeah.
yeah, I mean, we said that last week too. The Penn State studies, the end result is positive. The Cornell studies, the end result is negative.
Well, the
You
stuff
know.
I send you may have been written by someone that's against it, but if it has links, that's why I think it's valuable, because, you know, I say, take this, the conclusions with the grain of salt, but here's the study they got that from, and now you got to dig deeper and say, okay, well, I'm looking at this study and I don't agree with their conclusions, or I do agree with them, but I'm hoping those things are still helpful, even though, you know, the spin on the cover page might be negative, that you can dig deeper and get more information on it.
Where did this come from?
Is this the one you? Oh, you
That was
copied
in the
this.
New York Times, that came from Brad.
Yeah, did you keep a
That's
couple
right.
of pages there?
Yes, I have the original.
Oh, why? You think there's pages
There's
missing?
pages missing in
One,
there.
Oh.
2, 3, 4,
I have 12.
5.
We only wanted to give you the pro stuff.
Actually, I have 8 of 12.
Yep. So it ends at 8. What was a fair? Yeah, we're missing 9 through 12.
You know, I think part of the problem is that I don't think there's very much argument about the pro side. I think everybody knows that there's a lot of money to be made in this, and a lot of money will be coming in. I think the controversy comes up in terms of what are the other consequences that you might want to, so,
That's a
you know.
good point. And so that's what we have to struggle with. Okay,
I mean,
so
whether it's worth, you know, that's what you gotta answer. Is it worth, is the cost more than the benefit, or is the benefit more than the cost? But that's a value judgment. I mean, that's not a fact.
Right.
People have different, come down different sides on that.
All right, let me just, since we're out of time, let me, I guess, just ask a question, because we offered this approach to people who have been attending. Is there anything that we didn't consider, or any assessments that we made, either pro or con, that anybody has some input on?
Well, I wanted to remind you that I've sent you two pretty good pieces on the ad valorem taxes, and I believe you will find that they are paid to the state and then distributed to the local communities. One was clearly labeled and gets into how it's actually computed. The devil's in the details, and you need to dig into that, or you need to dig into that and share. It's one, but the other one I sent had a strange subject. It took me forever to find it, but you do have two emails from me that detail the ad valorem taxes.
Can you resend the one with the strange
Sure.
subject line and
Put
specify?
ad valorem in
Yes,
the subject,
in the subject, that'd
so
be
you don't have
great.
to dig for it.
Yep.
And I just wondered, did you get the thing I sent? It was only a couple hours before the meeting started. There was a letter in the Sullivan County Democrat where this guy points to the real property taxes as a Form 305, I think it was, saying that if you're a farmer and you've been getting agricultural exemptions, you'll automatically lose them once you go industrial on your land. And I went ahead and sent you the tax form and highlighted the sections that define that. Yeah, it's like something really weird too, because if you've been getting the exemption, then you put a drill on or a rig on your land, you have to pay back like 5 years worth or something. So I wanted to dig that information up, and I sent it to you just like a couple hours ago. So under the taxes, it wouldn't be municipal taxes, it'd be individual taxes, but it's definitely negative.
Yeah.
Related to the tax, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I would just like to say, you have to be careful of where the studies are coming from too.
Yeah.
There was just a piece on the radio on Friday afternoon about the University of Texas did a hydraulic fracturing study, and it turns out the head scientist was paid $1.5 million by the gas industry, and he had to resign, and the whole study is now, just thrown out the window. So you got to follow the money sometimes and see where these studies are coming from.
Yeah.
For more,
The point is well taken, but we've discussed that point several times already.
We're trying to use institutions, Cornell, Penn State, and that sort of thing, I think we're a little.
There's
I think
still
we can be-
influence.
There's still influence,
Last
yeah, but-
meeting, we left here about 10 minutes early. I went home, TV was on, and there was a retired DEC officer that switched from DEC to Department of Mineral Resources in New York State. His explanation, in less than 10 minutes now, he explained this fact. He says, anybody that thinks this is something new is missing the boat, because there's over, and I'll use this term, I know there's more, there's 10,000 wells in New York State already. Okay? And there's not one case of all of them having water problems. Not one. Now you can go ahead and check that any way you want.
he's talking about vertical.
They're vertical wells.
Vertical wells, okay. Now, since then, I went and looked it up myself. There's 14,000 wells already drilled. See, they have to go vertical first, then they go horizontal. So at whatever depth they are, they're not having any problems with the vertical well. And some of them are now, the technique is there, okay? But he says there's not one. Now, the data that come from, and I think you had the data yourself, you read it back to us from the EPA in New York State.
Mm-hmm.
They have cleared it as far as any problems in the water, there's none.
I don't.
I think you
remember
had that and you read it to us
last
two
time?
meetings ago, no,
Oh,
two meetings
I
ago.
don't know. Okay.
All right. So the problem, and it's stated in one of the papers, that as far as us having, and there's problems, you can have an accident anywheres. The odds of having water problems with this drilling is 1 in 200,000. That's another. Now, you can't run 200,000 people down the road and not have an accident. That's impossible. but that was the statement that they're being made. So.
Technology's been around a long time, Earl, 60 years.
Yes, it has.
60
Now,
years.
the last thing that he states in this thing, he says, anybody that thinks the regulations aren't in place, is wrong. He said, we've been drilling and have these regulations in place since 1984. The well has to be encased in concrete. I think it's 3 or 4 layers thick. Drill smaller, line it, concrete it. And that's why they have the safety factor they do.
Regulation
However-
is the big thing, and that's another thing I'd like to bring up in the
Regulation.
part of conclusions.
That's right.
You know, you would have to have very stringent regulations if it
Now, is
did
this
occur.
fellow paid by the gas company? I don't know. You know, I'm just telling you what his credentials were, and they were interviewing him on the TV. It was like we come from here and I go home and somebody turned the channel on specifically for me. I said, holy cow.
I think the economic part of this discussion was interesting. Wait till we get to the environmental part.
I might say that, you know, when they done the pipeline here, they done a nice job, and they left it nice.
There's $1 million lawsuit in Coshocton now against them. There's $1 million lawsuit for the roads. For the well, that's what it said in the paper.
Yeah.
I read
Democrat,
the same thing in the paper. Where is it?
It's in the Democrat. That's all I can
No,
tell
I
you.
mean, where's the piece of road?
Where's the road? I have no idea. It said town of Coshocton. That's all I know, bro.
Call Gary up when we get to that part. Gary Boston.
Oh, yeah.
He'll fill us in, right?
I can
For our
cross
comment.
through- I can cross through the road. Right here from the gas line, I've only traveled the gas line from one end to the other.
Yeah,
Bliss.
well, it crosses right by,
That's
Lee St. Craig's,
environmental stuff.
doesn't it?
Well, it crosses there
I
by just.
Well, town of Coshocton is what I was
You know,
thinking.
across
Is
the
anybody
town.
gonna see Matt?
$1 million.
There's one issue that you should maybe look at related to taxes, where I have seen references, I don't have them in my head right now, but that taxes increased due to increased costs having to do with, you know, providing more police, more services,
Oh, yeah.
et cetera. So that, you know, the tax, if tax rates go up,
Right.
so that's something to look at.
We have listed in municipal issues,
Oh,
which we didn't get to tonight.
The other tax issue that you were under the two entities, one was the severance tax.
Yeah, I know ad valorem. I'm not sure if that's the same thing exactly.
I think the severance tax, something tells me one of them stays local. I know the ad valorem goes to the state and comes back.
comes to the local, yeah.
Right.
I don't know if we,
Severance
state
is-
has a severance tax.
Severance is, as far as I know, it's a state tax. Alaska has a very, very profitable severance tax,
25%.
and every Alaskan gets a payout from the oil industry. But that's a state.
It'd be nice if we knew what the rules were, you know? What is this state really gonna do in ad valorem? Is it really gonna do a severance?
No,
It'd
we
be
don't
nice
know
while we're
that.
doing this if we already knew that. Instead of guessing.
All right, I guess I'm gonna wrap us up. I am gonna ask one more request of the audience and anybody contributing that might see this, but one of the things that's difficult for us is people send us a lot of information. It is not possible to, I don't know about you guys, maybe you're miracle workers, but it's not possible to read it all in the time frame that we have. And so what I would ask is, in addition to keeping it very facts-based, which people have been trying to do, what I've also been getting, though, is statements of opinion, I'll call them that, pages of statements of opinion, then with links.
Yeah.
Which basically means we have to go and research all the links to determine which link is associated with which opinion.
And be very specific on the subject line for emails.
Yes.
Like you said.
Like Brad
Very
just said,
very specific.
because otherwise there's just no way for us to get through it. So I would say, Tom, what you gave us, which was very specific, and then you pointed to the study and attached it to the back and said, this is where my statement comes from, that was perfect. So just for other folks who are going to, you know, and anybody else that you talk to, it needs to be very specific like that, only because we appreciate the input, but it's just impossible to get through if we have to do the digging into every link and every study. It's not a feasible task. So anyway,
January
Thank you.
7th? January 7th?
January 7th is our next meeting. Okay? And everybody have a wonderful holiday.
Thank
In
you.
the meantime.
Will you be able to corral the whole commission for that, the next time?
Well, that'll be
January?
interesting. I didn't know we were gonna have it.